Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, oh Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam Krishna book reading ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, everybody. So we're reading from the Krishna book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is chapter 21. Gopis are attracted by the flute. With the arrival of the beautiful autumn season, the waters in the lakes and the rivers become as clear as crystal and filled with fragrant lotus flowers, and breezes blew very pleasantly. At that time, Krishna entered the forest of Vrindavan with the cows and cowherd boys. Krishna was very pleased with the atmosphere of the forest, where the flowers bloomed and the bees and drones hummed very jubilantly, while the birds, trees, and plants were all looking very happy. Krishna, tending the cows and accompanied by Sri Balaram and the cowherd boys, began to vibrate his transcendental flute. After hearing the vibration of the flute of Krishna, the gopis in Vrindavan remembered him and began to talk among themselves about how nicely Krishna was playing his flute. When the gopis were describing the sweet vibrations of Krishna's flute, they also remembered his pastimes with them, and thus their minds became disturbed, and they were unable to describe completely the beautiful vibrations. While discussing the transcendental vibration, they remembered how Krishna dressed, decorated with a peacock feather in his head, just like a dancing actor, and with blue flowers pushed over his ears. His garments glowed yellow gold, and he was garlanded with the Vajanti necklace. Dressed in such an attractive way, Krishna filled up the holes of the flute with the nectar emanating from his lips. So they remembered him entering in the forest of Vrindavan, which is always glorified by the footprints of Krishna and his companions. Krishna was very expert in playing on the flute, and the gopis were captivated by the sound vibration, which was attractive not only to them but all living creatures who heard it. One of the gopis told her friends, "The highest perfection of the eyes is to see Krishna and Balaram entering the forest and playing on their flutes and tending to the calves with their friends." Persons who are constantly engaged in the transcendental meditation of seeing Krishna internally and externally, by thinking of him playing his flute, entering the Vrindavan forest, and tending the cows with the cowherd boys, have really attained the platform of Samadhi. Samadhi, trance, means absorption in the activities of the senses in a particular object. And the gopis indicate that the pastimes of Krishna are the perfection of all meditation and samadhi. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that anyone who is always absorbed in the thought of Krishna is the topmost of all yogis. Another gopi expressed her opinion that Krishna and Balaram, while tending the cows, appeared just like actors going to play on a dramatic stage. Krishna was dressed in glowing garments of yellow, Balaram in blue, and they held new twigs of mango trees, peacock feathers, and bunches of flowers in their hands, dressed with the garland of lotus flowers. They were sometimes singing very sweetly among their friends. One gopi told her friend, "How is it that Krishna and Balaram are looking so beautiful?" Another gopi said, "My dear friends, we cannot even think of this bamboo flute. What sort of pious activities did it execute so that it is now enjoying the nectar of the lips of Krishna, which is actually the property of us gopis?" Krishna sometimes kisses the gopis. Therefore, the transcendental nectar of his lips is available only to them. So the gopis asked, "How is it possible that the flute, which is nothing but a bamboo, is always engaging, enjoying the nectar of Krishna's lips?" Because the flute is engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, his mother and father of the flute must be very happy. The lakes and the rivers are considered to be the mothers of the trees because the trees simply, by drinking water, the lakes and the rivers are considered to be the mothers of the trees, and the trees live simply by drinking water. So the waters of the lakes are considered in Vrindavan, but they were all in a happy mood, which was full of blossoming lotus flowers, because the waters were thinking, "How is it that our son, the bamboo rod, is enjoying the nectar of Krishna's lips?" The bamboo trees standing by the banks of the river, of the lakes, were also happy to see that their descendant so engaged in the service of the Lord. Just like persons who are advanced in transcendental knowledge take pleasure in seeing their descendants engaging in the service of the Lord. The trees were overwhelmed with joy and were incessantly yielding honey, which flowed from the beehives hanging on the branches. Another gopi spoke to her friends about Krishna. "Dear friends, our Vrindavan is proclaiming the glories of the entire earth, because this planet is glorified by the lotus footprints of the son of Devaki. Besides that, when Govinda plays his flute, the peacocks immediately become mad, as if they had heard the rumbling of a new cloud. When all the animals and trees and plants, either on top of Govardhan Hill or in the valley, see the dancing of the peacock, they all stand and listen to the transcendental sound of the flute with great attention. We think that this boon is not possible or available on any other planet. Although the gopis were village cowherd women and girls, they had extensive knowledge of Vedic knowledge, such as the effect of the Vedic civilization. People in general would learn the highest truth of the Vedas simply by hearing from authoritative sources. Another gopi said, "My dear friends, just see the deer. Just see the deer. Although they are dumb animals, they have approached the son of Nanda Maharaj Krishna. Not only they are attracted by the dress of Krishna and Balaram, but as soon as they hear the playing of the flute, the deer with their husbands offer respectful obeisances unto the Lord by looking at him with great affection. The gopis were envious of the deer because the deer were able to offer their service to Krishna along with their husbands. The gopis thought themselves not so fortunate because whenever they wanted to go to Krishna, their husbands were not very happy. Another gopi said, "My dear friends, Krishna is so nicely dressed that he appears to be the impetus of all kinds of ceremonies held by the womenfolk. Even the wives of the denizens of heaven become attracted after hearing the transcendental sound of his flute. Although they are traveling in the air in their aeroplanes, enjoying the company of their husbands, on hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, they immediately become perturbed, and their hair is loosened, and their tight belts are slackened. This means that the transcendental sound of Krishna's flute, the flute of Krishna, is extended to all corners of the universe. Although it is significant that the gopis knew about different kinds of aeroplanes flying in the sky, another gopi said to her friends, "My dear friends, the cows are also charmed as soon as they hear your transcendental sound of the flute of Krishna. It sounds to them like the pouring of nectar, and they immediately spread their long ears just to catch the liquid nectar of the flute. As for the calves, they are seen with the nipples of their mothers pressed against their mouths, but they cannot suck the milk. They remain struck with devotion, and tears glide down from their eyes, illustrating vividly of how they are embracing Krishna heart to heart. This phenomenon indicates that even the cows and calves of Vrindavan knew how to cry for Krishna and embrace him heart to heart. Actually, the perfection of Krishna consciousness can be culminated in the shedding of tears from the eyes. Another young gopi told her mother, "My dear mother, the birds, who are all looking at Krishna playing the flute, are sitting very attentively on the branches of the twigs in different trees. From their features it appears they have forgotten everything and are engaged only in hearing Krishna's flute. This proves that they are not ordinary birds. They are great sages and devotees, and just to hear Krishna's flute, they have appeared in Vrindavan forests as birds." Great sages and scholars are interested in Vedic knowledge, but the essence of the Vedic knowledge is stated in Bhagavad Gita, "Vedas cha saveraham evo vedya." Through the knowledge of the Vedas, Krishna has to be understood. From the behavior of these birds, it has appeared that they are very great scholars in Vedic knowledge, and then they took to Krishna's transcendental vibration and rejected all other branches of knowledge. Even the river Jamuna, being desirous of embracing the lotus feet of Krishna, after hearing the transcendental sound of his flute, broke her fierce waves to flow very nicely, with lotus flowers in her hands, just to present flowers to Mukunda with deep feeling. The scorching heat of the autumn sunshine was sometimes intolerable, and therefore the clouds in the sky appeared in sympathy above Krishna and Balaram, their boyfriends, while they were engaged in blowing their flutes. The clouds served as a soothing umbrella over them, over their heads, just to make friendship with Krishna. The Aborigine girls became perfectly satisfied when they smeared their faces and breasts with the dust of Vrindavan, which was reddish from the touch of Krishna's lotus feet. The Aborigine girls had very full breasts, and they were also very lusty. But when their lovers touched their breasts, they were not very much satisfied. But when they came out into the midst of the forest and saw that while Krishna was walking, some of the leaves and creepers of Vrindavan had turned reddish from the kumkum powder which fell from his lotus feet. His lotus feet are held by the gopis on their breasts, which are smeared with the kumkum powder. But when Krishna travels in Vrindavan forest with Balaram and his boyfriends, the reddish powder falls on the ground of Vrindavan. And so the Aborigine girls, while looking towards Krishna playing his flute, saw the reddish kumkum on the ground, and immediately took it and smeared it over their faces and breasts. In this way they became fully satisfied, even though they were not satisfied when their lovers touched their breasts. All material lusty desires can be immediately satisfied if one comes in contact with Krishna consciousness. Another gopi began to praise the unique position of Govardhan Hill in this way. How fortunate is this Govardhan Hill, for it is enjoying the association of Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are accustomed to walk on it. Thus Govardhan is always in touch with the lotus feet of the Lord. And because Govardhan Hill is so obliged to Lord Krishna and Balaram, it is supplying different kinds of fruits, roots and herbs, as well as very pleasing crystal waters from its lakes, in presentation to the Lord. The best presentation offered by Govardhan Hill was the newly grown grass for the cows and the calves. Govardhan Hill knows how to please the Lord by pleasing his most beloved associates, the cows and the cowherd boys. Another gopi said, everything appears wonderful when Krishna and Balaram travelled in the forest of Vrindavan, playing their flutes and making intimate friendship with all kinds of moving and non-moving living creatures. When Krishna and Balaram play on their transcendental flutes, the moving creatures become stunned and stop their activities, and the non-moving living creatures, such as like the trees and plants, the non-moving creatures, like trees and plants, begin to shiver with ecstasy. These are the wonderful reactions of the vibration of the transcendental flute of Krishna and Balaram. Krishna and Balaram carried binding ropes on their shoulders and in their hands, just as ordinary cowherd boys. While milking the cows, the boys bound their hind legs with a small rope. They almost always hang from their shoulders of the boys, these ropes. And it was not absent from the shoulder of Krishna and Balaram, in spite of their being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They played exactly like our boys, and therefore everything became wonderful and attractive. While Krishna was engaged in tending to the cows in the forest of Vrindavan on the Govardhan Hill, the gopis in the village were always absorbed in thinking of him, discussing his different pastimes. This is the perfect example of Krishna consciousness. To somehow or another, always remain engrossed in thoughts of Krishna. The vivid example is always present in the behavior of the gopis, and therefore Lord Chaitanya declared that no one can worship the Supreme Lord by any method which is better than the method of the gopis. The gopis were not born in high Brahmana or Kshatriya families. They were born in the family of Vaishyas, and not a big mercantile community, but in the families of the cowherdmen. They were not very well educated, although they had heard all sorts of knowledge from the Brahmanas, the authorities of the Vedic knowledge. The gopis' only purpose was to remain always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 21st chapter of Krishna. The gopis are attracted by the flute. The message. I got fisherman friends from my throat. Hare Krishna. A jiva, if liberated, will be in Gaur Leela and Krishna Leela at the same time, or in Krishna Leela only. Thank you very much. Radhe Shyam from Beat Davis. Beat Lewis. Yes, the devotees of Krishna who worship Krishna exclusively, they go back to Goloka Vrindavan. Those who exclusively worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, they take birth in Navadvip. Those who worship Krishna by worshipping, going through Lord Chaitanya, they attain Goloka and also Navadvip. Hare Krishna. Thank you. This is chapter 22, the stealing of the garments of the unmarried gopis. According to Vedic civilization, unmarried girls from 14 years of age are supposed to worship either Lord Shiva or Goddess Durga in order to get a nice husband. But the unmarried girls of Vrindavan were already attracted by the beauty of Krishna. They were, however, engaged in worship of Goddess Durga in the beginning of the Hemanta season, just prior to the winter season. The first month of Hemanta is Agrayana, October-November, and at that time all the unmarried gopis of Vrindavan began to worship Goddess Durga with a vow. They first ate habishana, a kind of food prepared by boiling together mung dal and rice and without any spices or turmeric. According to the Vedic injunction, this kind of food is recommended to purify the body before one enacts spiritual ritualistic ceremony. All the unmarried gopis in Vrindavan used to daily worship Katyayani early in the morning after taking a bath in the river Jamuna. Katyayani is another name of Goddess Durga. The goddess is worshipped by preparing a doll made of sand on the bank of the river Jamuna. It is recommended in the Vedic scriptures that the deity may be made of different kinds of material elements. It can be painted, made from metal, made from jewels, made of wood, earth, or stone. It can be conceived within the heart of the worshipper. The Mayavadi philosopher takes these forms of the deity to be imaginary, but actually they are accepted in the Vedic literatures to be identical with either the Supreme Lord or the respective demigod. The unmarried gopis used to prepare the deity of Goddess Durga and worship it with chandan pulp, garlands, incense and lamps, and all kinds of presentations, fruits, grains, twigs and plants. After worshipping, it is custom to pray for some benediction. The unmarried girls used to pray with great devotion to the goddess Katyayani, addressing her as follows: O Supreme External Energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Supreme Mystic Power, O Supreme Controller of this material world, O Goddess, please be kind to us and arrange for our marriage with the son of Nanda Maharaj, Krishna. The Vaishnavas generally did not worship any demigod. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has strictly forbidden any worship of the demigods for anyone who wants to advance in pure devotional service. Yet the gopis, who are beyond compare in their affection for Krishna, were seen to worship Durga. The worship of demigods are also sometimes mentioned. The worship of demigods also sometimes mention that the gopis worship goddess Durga, but we must understand the purpose of the gopis. Generally, people worship goddess Durga for some material benediction. Here, the gopis prayed to the goddess to become wives of Lord Krishna. The purport is that if Krishna is the center of activity, a devotee can adopt any means to achieve that goal. The gopis could adopt any means to satisfy or serve Krishna. That was their super excellent characteristic of the gopis. The worship of the goddess Durga completely for 1 month in order to have Krishna as their husband. Every day they prayed for Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, to become their husband. Early in the morning, the gopis used to go to the bank of the Jamuna and take bath. They would assemble together and holding each other's hands, singing loudly the wonderful pastimes of Krishna. It is an old system amongst Indian girls and women that they take bath in the river. They take their garments off they place their garments on the bank of the river and dip into the water completely naked. The portion of the river where the girls and women bathe was strictly prohibited to any male, and this is still the system. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing the minds of the unmarried young gopi girls, blessed them with their desired objective. They had prayed to Krishna to become their husband, and Krishna wanted to fulfill their desires. At the end of the month, Krishna, along with his friends, appeared on the scene. Another name of Krishna is Yogeshwara, or Master of all mystic powers. By practicing meditation, the yogi can study the psychic movements of other men, and certainly Krishna could understand the desires of the gopis. Appearing on the scene, Krishna immediately collected all the garments of the gopis, climbed up into a nearby tree, and with a smiling face, he began to speak to them. "My dear girls," he said, "please come here, one after another, and pray for your garments, and then take them away. I'm not joking with you, I'm telling you the truth. I have no desire to play a joke with you, for you are tired from observing the regulative principles for 1 month by worshipping the goddess of Katyayani. Please do not come here all at one time. Come alone. I want to see each one of you in your complete beauty. You all have thin waists. I have requested you to come alone. Now, please comply." When the girls in the water heard such joking words from Krishna, they began to look at one another and smile. They were very joyous to hear Krishna make such a request from Krishna, because they were already in love with him. Out of shyness, they looked at one another, but they could not come out of the water because they were naked. Due to remaining in the water for a long time, they felt cold and were shivering. Yet upon hearing the pleasing joking words of Govinda, their minds were perturbed with great joy, and they told Krishna, "Dear son of Nanda Maharaj, please do not joke with us in that way. It's completely unjust to us. You are a very responsible boy because you are the son of Nanda Maharaj, and you are very dear to us, but you should not play this joke on us, because now we're all shivering from the cold water. Kindly deliver our garments immediately, otherwise we shall suffer." They began to appeal to Krishna with great submission. "Dear Krishna, dear Shamashunda," they said, "we are all your eternal servitors. Whatever you order us to do, we are obliged to follow without hesitation, because we consider it our religious duty. But if you, instead of putting this proposal to us, which is impossible to perform, then certainly we shall have to go to Nanda Maharaj and lodge a complaint against you. If Nanda Maharaj does not take action, then we shall tell King Kamsa about your misbehavior. Upon hearing this appeal by the unmarried gopis, Krishna answered, "My dear girls, if you think of me as my eternal servitors and you are always ready to execute my order, then my request is that you, with your smiling faces, please come here alone, one after another, and take away your garments. If you do not come here, however, or you lodge complaints against my father, I shall not care anyway, for I know my father is old and cannot take any action against me." When the gopis saw Krishna was strong and determined, they had no other alternative than to abide by his order. One after another they came out of the river of the water, but because they were completely naked, they tried to cover their nakedness by placing their hands over their pubic area. In that posture, they were all shivering. Their simple presentation was so pure that Lord Krishna immediately became pleased with them. All of the unmarried gopis who prayed to Katyayani to have Krishna as their husband, and thus they were satisfied. A woman cannot be naked before any male except her husband. The unmarried gopis desired Krishna as their husband, and he fulfilled their desires in this way. Being pleased with them, he took their garments from his shoulder, and he began to speak as follows. "My dear girls, you have committed a great offense by going naked in the river, Jamuna. Because of this, the predominating deity of Jamuna, Varunadev, has become displeased with you. Please, therefore, just touch your foreheads with folded palms and bow down to the demigod Varuna in order to be excused from this offensive act." The gopis were all simple souls, and whatever Krishna said they took to be true. In order to be freed from the wrath of Varunadev, as well as to fulfill the desired end of their vows, and ultimately to please their worshipful Lord Sri Krishna, they immediately abided by his order. Thus they become the greatest lovers of Krishna and his most obedient servitors. Nothing can compare to Krishna consciousness of the gopis. Actually, the gopis did not care for Varuna or any other demigod. They only wanted to satisfy Krishna. Krishna became ingratiated and satisfied by the simple dealings of the gopis, and he immediately delivered their respective garments one after another. Although Krishna cheated the young unmarried gopis and made them stand naked before him and enjoy joking words with them, and although he treated them just like dolls and stole their garments, they were still pleased with him and never lodged any complaints against him. This attitude of the gopis is described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he says, "My dear Lord Krishna, you may embrace me, or you may trample me under your feet, or you may make me broken-hearted by never being present before me. Whatever you like you can do, because you have complete freedom to act. But in spite of all your dealings, you are my Lord eternally. I have no other worshipful object." This is the attitude of the gopis towards Krishna. Lord Krishna was pleased with them, and since they all desired to have him as their husband, he told them, "My dear, well-behaved girls, I know that of your desire for me and why you worship Goddess Katyayani, and I completely approve of your action. Anyone whose full consciousness is always absorbed in me, even in lust, is elevated. As a fried seed cannot fructify, so any desire in connection with my loving service cannot produce any fruitive results as in ordinary karma." There is a statement in the Brahma Samhita, "Karma nimudati kintu cha bhakti bhajam." Everyone is bound by his fruitive activities. But the devotees, because they work completely for the satisfaction of the Lord, they suffer no reactions. Similarly, the gopis' attitude towards Krishna, although they were seemingly lusty, are not to be considered just like those of lusty desires of ordinary women. The reason is explained by Krishna himself. Activities in devotional service to Krishna are transcendental to any fruitive results. My dear gopis, Krishna continued, your desire to have me as your husband will be fulfilled, because it is this desire that you have worshipped Goddess Katyayani. I have promised that during the next autumn season you shall be able to meet with me and shall enjoy with me as your husband. Later, Krishna, in the company of his cowherd boyfriends, took shelter of the shade of some trees and became very happy. Thus he addressed all of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. My dear Stoka Krishna, my dear Varutapi, my dear Bhadrashena, my dear Sudama, my dear Shubal, my dear Arjuna, my dear Vishal, my dear Rishabha, just look at these most fortunate trees of Vrindavan. They have dedicated their lives to the welfare of others. Individually, they are tolerating all kinds of natural disturbance, such as hurricanes, torrents of rain, scorching heat, and piercing cold. But they are very careful to relieve the fatigue and give us shelter. My dear friends, I think they are glorified in this birth as trees. They are so careful to give shelter to others, that they are like noble, highly elevated, charitable men who never deny charity, even to one who approaches them. They never deny charity to one who approaches them. No one is denied shelter by these trees. They supply various kinds of facilities to human society, such as leaves, flowers, fruits, shade, roots, bark, flavor extracts, and fuel. They are the perfect example of noble life. They are like a noble person who has sacrificed everything possible, his body, mind, activities, intelligence, and words, for the welfare of all living entities. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead walked on the bank of the Jamuna, touching the leaves of the trees and other fruits and flowers and twigs, and praising their glorious welfare activities. Different people may accept certain welfare activities to be beneficial for human society according to their own view, but the welfare activity that can be rendered to people in general for eternal benefit is the spreading of the Hare Krishna consciousness movement. Everyone should be prepared to propagate this movement. As instructed by Lord Chaitanya, one should be humbler than the grass on the ground, more tolerant than the tree. The toleration of the tree is explained by Lord Krishna himself, and those who are engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness should learn lessons from the teachings of Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya through their direct disciplic succession. While passing through the trees and the forests of Vrindavan on the bank of the Jamuna, they sat down at a beautiful spot and allowed the cows to drink the cold and transparent waters of the Jamuna. Being fatigued, the cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram all drank after seeing the young gopis bathing in the Jamuna. Krishna passed the rest of the morning with the boys. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport, the 22nd chapter of Krishna, the stealing of the garments of the unmarried gopi girls. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ramo, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Krishna book ki jai. Krishna hearing ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama.